Wallace loves cheese almost as much as I love Bloodborne, and one of my favorite things about this game is the quality of its weapon variety. So today I'm going to be showing off Bloodborne's fine array of cutlery by beating every boss in the game with a different weapon. The rules are pretty simple. If I beat a boss, then I'm no longer allowed to use the weapon I beat it with. I also decided to stay away from any items that would significantly increase my damage, such as beast blood pellets or fire paper. Now, is this the most difficult concept ever conceived for a Bloodborne challenge run? No. But I figured it would make for a fun video idea, so here we are. Now, let's begin. To start, we'll obviously be going by Chad of Yharnam, picking the starting class with the funny weed number, and making sure we look dapper as hell. Before setting out, my doctor is going to use a Scourge Beast to give us one last reminder of what will happen if I try to use a weapon after beating a boss with it. Damn. After escaping my aunt's clinic, we can head to the Dream and pick up our first weapon of the run, the Threaded Cane. It's been a long time since I've used this thing, but as usual, I'm pretty satisfied with its performance. Like a lot of other weapons, it's got a nice contrast of having one form that works as a quick DPS tool, while the other is meant for crowd control. Plus, it feels so satisfying to finish off some enemies with the whip, and then revert it back to the cane form. Definitely the most gentlemanly weapon in the game. Before fighting Cleric Beast, I've got to direct my focus toward getting as many Bloodstone shards as possible, because this run is easily going to eat up way more upgrade materials than any other I've done before. I've also got to get the Saw Hunter badge from that pig. Onto the big boy with the banger music. Naturally, he didn't pose a huge threat, but one thing I was thrown off by is just how little damage the cane does to him. I guess I underestimate how much the serrated damage on saw weapons give you an advantage in the early game. I still beat him first try, since I've faced him more times than I've visited his mom, but I just wasn't expecting it to turn into a 6-minute battle. Well, with the first boss checked off the list, it's time to use the second weapon of the run, a personal favorite of mine, the Hunter Axe. This easily has one of my favorite movesets in the entire game. Once again, the short mode is good for DPS, and the long version is a blessing for crowd control. With moves like the wide sweeping L2s and spin to win, there are few armaments in any Souls game that I feel more comfortable with when surrounded by enemies. I also really like the untransformed charge, and the fact that it can combo so damn smoothly. Next, we gotta start Eileen's quest line in order to get the Blade of Mercy later on.
Oh. A hunter, are you?
I'm also gonna change my fit and get access to the good old saw spear. Hello, Mr. Pig. Alright, time for boss number 2. The main reason I decided to use the Hunter Axe against Gascoigne is because he also uses a Hunter Axe, and I don't know, I guess I can take the opportunity to show him that I'm better at using it. Oh yeah, I guess I should touch on parrying real quick. For about the first third of the run, the idea never even crossed my mind that maybe I shouldn't parry the bosses in order to place more of a focus on the weapons themselves. So for most of the run, I restrained myself from parrying bosses, but I did do it a bit near the start. Also, yeah, I'm better than Gascoigne at using the axe. Quick beast transformation. Quick defeat, and onto Cathedral Ward we go, equipped with the third weapon of the run, the Kirk Hammer. This is also where I'm going to start to actually upgrade my weapons. Going with only one upgrade in the Brooch gem is going to leave me feeling a little underpowered, but considering the amount of materials we'll need from now on, I just felt like playing it safe. And luckily for me, I was too busy having fun with the Kirk Hammer to even care. That transformed charged R2 is one of the most satisfying attacks in the game, especially if you utilize the follow-up to send dudes flying. Like, the regular sword version of this weapon is safe and useful, but I almost exclusively use the hammer mode. I love how powerful it feels. Also, I got myself a massive fit upgrade. Now that we've made it to Old Yharnam, we'll be spending even more time obsessing over getting every last upgrade material because damn, there are a lot of them here. After some more hammering, it's time to do something I haven't done in over 200 hours worth of Bloodborne playtime. I'm gonna fight Jura, so I can get access to the powder keg weapons. From what I can recall, I remember this guy being a giant pain in the ass to fight, so I might be here for a while. Or not. A few more smashes and blood shards later, and we come face to face with the blood-starved beast. As I mentioned in my Bloodborne boss ranking, this is one of those bosses that used to give me trouble, but once you get its moves down, I honestly think it's one of the easiest in the game due to how well telegraphed the moves are. Which is great for me right now, because that damage is not doing me any favors. It was a pretty clean run until the third phase, where you get poisoned just for being in the beast's proximity. Out of the 8 minutes that this fight lasted, the final 4 were all dedicated to being patient in that third phase. But while it was a little drawn out, I still got him first try. Next up, I'm using a weapon I haven't messed around with in ages, the stake driver. All in all, it's pretty standard, but I like the practicality of its quick short-range swings, and of course, there's by far the best thing about it, that beautiful transformed charged R2. Yep, this is one of my favorite moves in the game. It does have a lengthy wind-up, but the payoff is so worth it. Most of my time using this weapon just evolved into me trying to use this move as often as possible. Also, for the record, from now on, every weapon is getting a +3 upgrade minimum. I'm done being stingy with the regular shards. Anyway, next on the to-do list is getting the Sword Hunter badge, dropping to the old workshop to collect the doll clothes along with the cord, and selling the doll clothes for way more than they should probably be worth. In terms of leveling up, so far I've been putting an emphasis on just getting solid health, as well as slowly building points in each damage scaling stat, since I'll eventually have to cover the requirements for every weapon in the game. After stake driving my way through the rest of Cathedral Ward, I've got to meet back up with Eileen so I can get one step closer to the Blade of Mercy.
I must warn you not to go near the tomb below Erden Chapel in the Cathedral
Oh shit,
Ward.
hang on Eileen.
Henry, an old hunter. He's gone now. And he's my mark.
Yep, I heard everything you said.
Don't go near the tomb below Erden Chapel in the Cathedral Ward.
Not sure what she said back there, but something's telling me I should go to the tomb below Odin Chapel. Just feels right. Yep, that must have been what she said. She probably wanted me to help take care of this guy. Oh, damn. Well, this isn't how I wanted to obtain the Crow badge, but it's better than not getting it at least. Now with all that busy work complete, it's time for the stake driver to fulfill its purpose by helping me defeat a melee. Shit, I forgot the numbing mist. Alright, we're good now. But you know, after using the stake driver's awesome charge move so many times, I decided to do a self-imposed mini challenge and try to beat Amelia using only charge attacks. This ended up going better than expected. Obviously some of it is kinda up to luck, and there were a lot of misses, but with only 3 blood vials remaining, I still managed to do it in one try. Though I did accidentally use the untransformed charge a couple of times, so it doesn't really count. Still though, I thought it was kind of a cool send-off for the weapon, and thanks to it, I can now commence with geeking out from this skull.
Master Willem, I've come to bid you farewell.
On to weapon number 5, the rifle spear. But before testing it out, we're taking a little trip to Geeker Town. Don't mind the giant invisible alien. He's kinda weird, but he's chill. He gets you where you need to go. Okay, rifle spear time. This is definitely one of the most clowned on weapons in the game, but also, just like every other weapon in Bloodborne, it has a pretty vocal fan base that loves it. And while I can't exactly argue that it's one of the most effective tools in the game, it is pretty solid. The gimmick of being able to shoot using your right hand weapon is cool, and it's got some solid thrust attacks that I feel pretty safe with. Don't take the damage numbers too seriously here though, this is supposed to be a late game area. Honestly, the damage numbers you see from weapons throughout this video in general shouldn't really affect your opinion of them since I'll usually be underpowered. Now for the 3 reasons I came here. 1, acquire the best hat in the game. 2, get a bunch of upgrade materials. And 3, get all the weapons, cause they really do just be handing them out in this place. A couple executioners and shards later, and we're moving on to Hemwick. Naturally, while we're here, I've gotta visit my closest friend in Yharnam, Joe the Crow. Hey Joe, do you know where the Cosmic Kush is located?
Master Willem.
Oh, Willem knows. Thanks man, I'll bring you back some when my journey is complete. Yeah, I'm not really a huge fan of this area. Next, it's time to fight the most boring boss in the game. I don't think it matters much which weapon you use against the witches, they're just a giant slogfest. At least Celestial Emissary is over quickly, but this one is a full-on chore. Oh yeah, I beat it first try. Cool. Weapon number 6, the Beast Cutter. In a way, it's kind of like a bigger but slower version of the threaded cane. It's got the whip-like transformed version, which in this case is actually one of the best tools for crowd control in the entire game, along with the shortened version where you get some standard club-like moves. The real selling point of this weapon is the insane range of the transformed moveset. The horizontal sweeps are awesome, and the double R2 combo that flattens enemies is so much fun to use. Plus, the club form is always nice if you want a more practical approach. As you can tell by the footage, we're heading through the Forbidden Woods next, which is thankfully another treasure trove of twin shards because I'm gonna start needing those soon. Anyway, next we're facing the Nazgul ripoffs, the Shadows of Yharnam. Unexpectedly, this was the first fight that gave me a bit of trouble, though I guess part of it was on me for being a little stingy and keeping the Beast Cutter at +3. Out of the 3 deaths, 2 were because I was trying too hard to use the transformed heavy since it's so much fun. But eventually I decided to be patient and almost exclusively use the R1, which is probably one of the safest attacks you can use against these guys. It consistently stun locks them and can hit multiple at once. Now that the melee guy is defeated, the fight is basically over. All I've got to do is beat the ranged fighter and abuse the fact that the candle guy always has the same reaction to being hit. Good shit. Weapon number 7, one that I'm sure everyone here is familiar with, the Saw Cleaver. You know, like the one on the cover of the game. As you probably know, the Saw Cleaver is one of the most effective weapons in Bloodborne. The transformed mode is extremely mid, but the shortened version has one of the best R1 strings in the game, the R2 is super fast, and the transforming attacks are easily some of my favorites. Also, whenever I get a new weapon now, you're probably gonna notice me going backwards through Old Yharnam like this. And that's because I'm out of regular Bloodstone shards, so I'm using the Scourge Beasts here as my Bloodstone farm. Plus, it's a nice way of getting reacquainted with each weapon before moving on. The reason I'm using the Saw Cleaver now is because Rom is next, and while Rom isn't my least favorite boss in the game, I definitely think she's one of the most annoying to die to. Needless to say, we're using twin shards now. Imagine getting caught by the brain suckers after beating this game countless times.
Not very classy for someone's dying words.
Ah yes, I always underestimate the worst part of Bergenworth. You know what, I usually die trying this, but let's see if we can cheese Yuri. Nice. Oh hey, it's Master Willem. Joe the Crow told me you know where the Cosmic Kush is located. Mind helping me out? Thanks, man.
Stings, doesn't it?
Well, I don't see any otherworldly Za. I guess the only way to find it is by defeating Rom. So let's get to it. In most of my casual Bloodborne playthroughs, I usually just rush Rom and ignore the spiders. But considering that my damage isn't as dependable as it is on a regular playthrough, I figured I'd take the safe route and finish off the spiders one at a time to avoid the frustration of dying. Which ironically led to me getting even more frustrated when I did die because I wasted all that time finishing off the dumbass spiders. I feel like 90% of the time I die to Rom, it's just because of the meteor attack. I've even got some embarrassing proof because I actually ended up dying a handful of times here. But eventually, I got Rom by herself in the final phase, making her a pushover. Now for the Cosmic Kush. I'll probably know it when I see it. Yup. I guess it comes with some tentacle monster side effects. Weapon number 8, the Boom Hammer. Objectively, this is one of the simplest weapons in the game since the transformation just adds a fire buff to your next attack instead of switching to an alternate moveset. But despite the inherent simplicity, I still love using it. The limited moveset is still a good one, and every single attack is so much fun to use with the fire buff. I also think the one transforming attack it has is actually one of the best. We go in +4 for this one. While we're in Yahar Ghul, I'll make sure to get the Upper Cathedral key and fiendishly scavenge for every bloodstone chunk I can get my hands on, even though I won't be using them for a while. And just one blood gem later, I've now got a nice 18% damage increase. Next up is Parl, who, as anticipated, wasn't much of a hassle. By the time you actually get to Yahar Ghul, his health bar isn't too impressive. I did die once, but after that I figured I'd try to rush him and get out as much damage as possible, which was pretty effective since you can often get stunned. See ya, Parl. For weapon number 9, I'll be using what I personally consider to be the most fun beast-slaying tool in the game, the Whirligig Saw. While the untransformed mode is pretty solid and useful, I do find it to be significantly outshined by the transformed version, where you stick that beautiful buzzsaw on top of it. The light attacks are so smooth despite being a little slow, and deal great damage. The charged R2 is absolutely monstrous, and the L2 where you just let it endlessly spin is one of the most unique and entertaining moves out there. By the way, +5 upgrade is the standard from here on. Well, time for everyone's favorite boss, the one reborn. Similarly to Rom, I went out of my way to use one of the best weapons in the game against this thing because in this case, I genuinely hate it. Luckily, the fight went pretty well. As expected, there was some usual one reborn tomfoolery, such as the random explosions and the stupid ass puke attack. But as I said, the Whirligig Saw is one of the most effective weapons in the game, so despite being at +5, I was low-key able to shred it at times. Glad I didn't have to die against this one. Weapon number 10 is a solid contender for the weirdest one in the game. It's the Amygdalin Arm. The untransformed version is a standard club-type weapon, which works pretty well. But personally, I've gotta give the edge to that goofy-ass transformed mode. The light attacks are solid for crowd control, and that charged R2 is so ridiculously cool. I guess the idea is that this piece of amygdalin flesh still has some leftover reflexes in it, which is how it manages to move on its own after your initial swing, which I find makes it super fun to use. Onto the lecture hall we go. Don't be freaked out by the corpses when coming here. This was their doing anyway. Yo, Patches, have you ever considered putting an end to your assholish tendencies and being a nice person?
No matter. Such details are trifling.
The trippiness level shall now increase as we've entered our first nightmare area. Ah yes, the worst room in all of the Souls games. I hate all of you, get me the hell out of here. Next up is the King of Cringe himself, Mikolash. This is definitely one of the main bosses where the weapon you choose to fight him with is not going to have much of an effect on the outcome. Though ironically, I completely forgot that the Amygdalin Arm does some arcane damage, and Mikolash is decently resistant to arcane. So while it was far from the hardest fight of the run, it sure did take a while. The amount of times I had to smash him with it, while tedious, was actually pretty enjoyable since I just love shitting on this guy so much. Especially since I didn't die, otherwise I probably would have gotten mad. See you next time, you weird enigma of a boss fight. Weapon number 11 is the Blade of Mercy. Oh yeah, by the way, I now have access to the best Blood Echo farm in the game, so I don't have to do the whole old Yharnam run every time anymore. Easily the most interesting thing about the Blade of Mercy to me is that it's one of the few weapons in the game with a legit significant learning curve. The blades themselves naturally don't deal much damage per hit, so it's on the player to utilize their speed and get the most out of them. The L2 can be abused for getting to safety at the end of a combo, and the way the light attack combo ramps up as it goes on is so damn satisfying. My only real gripe is that I don't like the untransformed mode. It isn't necessarily bad, but man, it doesn't get more boring than this. Though I'm willing to forgive it for that, since this weapon might just have the most satisfying pair of transforming sound effects to spam. I can't get enough of that. Anyway, in case you couldn't tell from the footage, our next destination is Canehurst Castle. Not much of interest happened here, but there was a weird moment where one of the gargoyles just teleported out of existence. Odd. Now, for those of you who don't yet realize why I've made a stupid mistake, let me tell you. Just like the Amygdalin Arm, I completely forgot that the Blade of Mercy does some arcane damage, and Ligarius has got some hefty arcane resistance. So I'm going through the exact same mistake I made with Mikolash. Only this time, I also forgot to pick up the top tier blood gems near the end of the Nightmare of Mensis, which made me feel really dumb when I remembered later on. But regardless, we're here, we're doing it, it's time to beat up Ligarius. Phase 1 was pretty easy as expected. The BOM is great for stun locking, which can be a real killer against this guy at the beginning. I also managed to get the backstab on him. Afterwards, it was a pretty damn chaotic battle. I was only able to get a couple hits in at a time since he reacts so quickly. And combining that with the fact that I don't deal much damage led to one of the longest and messiest fights of the run. I also got this weird glitch where his music never transitioned into the second phase. A couple runs ago, I also ran into a problem where Lady Maria's music wouldn't change either. Why is this such a thing in Bloodborne specifically? Anyway, random rant aside, with only 5 blood vials left, I got him. And now that I've got the Cosmic Kush-infused crown, wearing it will allow me to hallucinate a new room where I can pledge my allegiance to Annalise, and get access to weapon number 12, one of my personal favorites, the Chikage. Okay, that might be the best transforming sound effect in the game. Conceptually, this thing is just so peak. The regular mode is more or less the kind of standard katana moveset you'd find in other FromSoft games, which is a good thing. But when you transform it, dousing the blade with your own blood, it switches to pure blood tinge scaling that's noticeably more powerful than untransformed with proper stat investment. But it also slowly eats away at your health over time to balance things out. The cool factor of the blood effects, along with the satisfaction of stuff like ending a combo with a transforming attack, so you're already back to not losing health, makes for one of my favorite armaments FromSoft has ever cooked up. Also, I finally got the top tier main game blood gems, so my weapons can be as effective as possible while still remaining at +5. Unfortunately, as much as I love the blood tinge mode, I haven't been able to heavily lean into that stat, due to the nature of my build needing to work for everything at once. So for this run, the untransformed mode is actually going to work a lot better. Before moving on to the next boss, I'm just going to get Simon's bow now, cause I don't remember all the locations you find him in, and I don't feel like looking it up. Sorry, bro. I will say though, this man put up one hell of a fight. Bro's got Deadshot Daiquiri or something with that precision. So as you could tell by the area, the next boss I'm fighting is Ludwig. There are still a few more main game bosses to clean up, but I really wanted to get to the DLC as quickly as possible since it contains a few more top tier weapons that I want to unlock. Despite my damage already being pretty weak, and knowing that the transformed mode wouldn't perform very well, I still couldn't help but try and use it because of how cool it is. But 5 deaths later, I got the message that it just wasn't gonna fly against Ludwig. So I gave in and strictly focused on using the untransformed version. Though while it is a bit boring in comparison, this whole experience actually got me to appreciate it a lot more than before. While the regular moves are less cool, they're also super quick and easy to use, plus I love that thrusting charge attack. I still died a couple more times, but I got there in the end. Weapon number 13, the Rider Palash. Aside from the rifle spear, this is the only other right-hand weapon in the game that's capable of shooting regular parrying bullets. And not gonna lie, I'm a bigger fan of this one's moveset. The transformed R1 string just feels really satisfying, and everything else is reasonably solid. Until now, I've never really given much thought as to why, but for some reason I always end up forcing myself to defeat this annoying NPC duo, no matter how many times I fail. That's once, that's twice, and finally I've defeated the Ludwig's Holy Blade user. Time to abuse the spellcaster lady.
Oh, I've been waiting for this. Oh boy, I've been waiting for this.
I guess the satisfaction of easily beating the second one after dealing with their combined tomfoolery is why I always fight them. Onto the research hall, one of the best areas in the entire series in terms of level design, but probably one of my least favorites in terms of combat. Have I ever talked about just how shitty the patient enemies are? Oh yeah, of course I have. After conquering the labyrinth, it's time to fight the living failures. But you know how earlier in the video I mentioned that I wouldn't parry any bosses after the first third of the run? Well, I figured I could make an exception for the weapon that actually includes parrying as one of its features, since I'm technically still focusing on the weapon itself. But yeah, parrying the living failures is just so damn satisfying that I figured I'd save the Rider Palash for them. Sometimes all you need to defeat these guys is...
A bullet.
A bullet? A bullet?
I died a couple of times, but all in all, they weren't much of a hassle. Weapon number 14, the Tonitrus. Similarly to the Boom Hammer, this weapon ditches the double moveset standard of most by replacing the transformation button with a buff. In this case, a lightning buff. But unlike the Boom Hammer, the buff actually sticks around for about 10 seconds instead of going away after one hit, so that's kinda cool. The moveset is also really fast and efficient, plus after getting reacquainted with it, I was surprised at how much I actually used the transforming attack. Next, it's time to fight everyone's favorite masochistic blondie. While I wasn't too concerned about her, I expected that I would die a handful of times because I'm still just using +5 weapons against everything. I know I could probably be making things a little easier for myself, but I just really didn't want to deal with any twin shard farming. Overall, despite my complaints, the Tonitrus's speedy and reliable moveset served me pretty damn well against Maria. The main thing holding me back is that I can still have a decent amount of trouble with her third phase thanks to the additional fire effects, which can catch me off guard since for some reason I can regularly forget to properly dodge by going into the attack. But as always, we got her. Afterward, I gave crazy old Alfred a Canehurst summons to get his badge, and witness his pretty solid evil laugh. Now I can be just as crazy as he is by using his weapon for number 15, the Ligarius Wheel. Also, this was the point in the game where I ran out of twin shards, so I figured I'd just spend all of my insight on them from now on. All in all, I had more fun with the wheel than I had anticipated. The moveset isn't particularly cool or standout to me, mostly just consisting of a lot of slams, but it still feels surprisingly fluid. The untransformed R1s are really reliable, the transformed R2s feel great, and I'm a fan of both of the transforming attacks. While I was in the mood for smashing stuff, I figured I'd go unlock the church pick in the meantime.
Shrouded by 9 bullets.
We're gonna do a little more focusing on the main game, and next in line to get their ass beaten is Mergo's Wet Nurse. This was quite a long and drawn out battle. On top of my damage currently being minuscule, the Wet Nurse was also in the mood for spamming its most pointless, time-wasting attack where it shimmies around and randomly slices in different directions. Eventually it conjured the Nightmare phase and picked me off after fighting for 7 minutes. But I managed to end things after 8 minutes on try number 2. For number 16, it's time to use my favorite weapon in the game, the Beast Hunter safe. It may not be the most standout one, but it's just so damn practical. And it gives you a lot of convenient movement boosts. The first attack of the transformed light attack combo gives you a nice lunge forward to catch your enemies off guard. And the transforming attacks are hands down the best transforming attacks in the game. One of them gives you a surprisingly useful dash forward, and the other is followed by a backstep that's perfect for getting out of danger. The untransformed mode is also a solid tool for crowd control, and combining that with the great DPS of the transformed mode makes for a weapon that I feel perfectly comfortable with in literally any situation. I'm gonna get some busy work done with it in the meantime as an excuse to use it for as long as I can. So let's clear some fish enemies and get the Rikuyo from the infamous shark duo. Alrighty, my patience is already depleted. Shaman Boneblade time. Zero shame. Nice. Now we can fight this codger to get access to his weapon.
You will be freed from this terrible hunter's dream.
No, I refuse.
Honestly, this was just one of the most chill and enjoyable fights of the run. My build is a little all over the place, and I'm still keeping my weapons at +5, but I've got a lot of experience with the safe, and I've been dabbling in the DLC, which led to a fight that didn't give me much trouble. Enjoy your freedom from the dream, old man. Here comes the moon presence. Trust me, I'd like to fight you right now. I'm sure I'd kick your ass, but I've got more bosses to beat first. For weapon number 17, I'm going with one of the most beloved armaments in any Souls game, the Rikuyo. This is one of those weapons where it's kinda hard to picture someone giving it a fair chance and not liking it. Similarly to the safe, it's such a good all-rounder. Both movesets have quick, practical moves, the transforming attacks are solid, the transformed L2 is awesome for crowd control, it comes with lots of poking attacks for the kin, and best of all, it has some of the smoothest combos in the game. Similarly to the Hunter Axe, almost every attack this weapon has feels like it flows seamlessly into any of the others, which makes it feel satisfying to have some fun messing around with its variety. While I'm in the area, I might as well go unlock the Bloodletter. Dude, this guy's buff where he makes your weapons bounce off of him is so stupid. I hate fighting him so much. Well, guess there's no more beating around the bush. Orphan of Kos awaits. I went into this fight feeling pretty confident after annihilating Gehrman, and I did end up making it to phase 2 on the first try, but then I quickly got destroyed. As I'm sure many of you could predict, this was the hardest boss of the run. The combination of me not having played this game in a while, along with doing some pretty pathetic damage, made Orphan a fairly challenging wall. And I know a lot of you are thinking, bro, It's Orphan of Kos. Why the hell wouldn't you just upgrade your weapon past +5? This basically is the big challenge you've been saving the Bloodstone chunks for. And while that is the logical way of looking at it, after 10 deaths, this shit became personal. Since I do what appears to be almost no damage with my regular attacks, I made sure to put a large emphasis on getting backstabs whenever possible, since those allow me to rip away some solid chunks of his HP. And of course, it helps that the Rakuyo's charge attack is practical and easy to use. I almost exclusively used the weapon's untransformed mode during most of the attempts due to the inherent thrust attacks you get with the R1 string, which of course deal more damage to the kin. So while it may not have been worth the time it took to do so, I beat Orphan of Kos while staying at +5 after 17 deaths and a 10-minute fight to finish things off. Glad that's over with. Now I get the chance to mess around with one of the coolest weapons in the game, the Bloodletter. This thing's got a similar gimmick to the Chikage, except instead of slowly draining your health while in the transformed mode, it basically takes an upfront fee of health from you since you literally stab it through your body in order to transform it. However, if you use this transformation as an attack, you can simultaneously hit an enemy with it while stabbing yourself using the rally system to immediately get your health back, which easily makes it one of my favorite transforming attacks in the game. Aside from that, it's a really solid weapon. The untransformed mode is one of the game's many short and quick tools, and the elongated version does great damage, plus the charged heavy is so much fun. Next up, we're switching back to the main game to finish off its remaining optional bosses, starting with a trip through Upper Cathedral Ward. And from there, it's time to fight one of the most clowned-on bosses in the series, Celestial Emissary. Man, after fighting Orphan of Kos, what the hell even is there to say here? Despite having a +5 weapon, this is still living up to the hype it gets in terms of ease. I did lose a bit of focus near the end, and actually took a decent amount of damage, but it was basically still over in an instant. Weapon number 19, Simon's Bowblade. This is easily one of the most unique weapons in the game. The regular mode is once again a solid and quick DPS tool, but the transformation turns it into, as its name would suggest, a bow. Of course, my blood tinge isn't the highest right now, which means the arrows won't do as much damage as they potentially could, but they're still pretty useful and feel worth the silver bullet cost. The reason I'm using this weapon now is because I've heard people mention to me in the past that you can make Ebrietas a lot easier with it, so I figured I'd give it a shot. Turns out, yeah, they were right. Since you can go out of your way to target her head, it lets you get the extra weak spot damage. And if you invest in at least a few blood bullets, you'll easily have enough ammo to get the job done. I still died once from her stupid broken charge attack, but on try number 2, I just had a great time annihilating her from a distance. On to weapon number 20, the icon of the From Software games, the Holy Moonlight Sword. While this weapon is found in the majority of FromSoft's recent titles, going by slightly different names, this might be the best version of it they've ever done. The untransformed mode is where it looks more like a typical sword, and it is actually pretty damn solid here. There aren't any crazy cool and fun moves, but it's still an efficient killer. The transformed version, on the other hand, is where the cool factor really shines. It looks amazing, you can use quicksilver bullets to shoot beautiful projectiles from it, and the transforming attacks are some of my favorite to use in the game. The only thing I don't like about this weapon is dealing with the contrast of its physical and arcane damage, meaning the only way to perfectly optimize its damage is by going deep into the Chalice dungeons, which I almost never enjoy. After making my way through the Nightmare Frontier, I decided to focus my blood gems purely on arcane damage, because just like with the previous boss, I'm gonna see if I can cheese Amygdala by only using the projectile attacks on its giant weak spot. And I can safely say that this fight was the easiest of the entire run. Since my arcane wasn't that crazy, I expected the projectiles to be a bit less effective than usual, but I expected wrong. This dude went down faster than some regular enemies. With weapon number 21, it's time to become an edgelord of death, because I'm using Gehrman's good old burial blade. Except this time, I'm going all in and actually upgrading to +10. After dealing with underpowered damage for the whole game, I had to let off a bit of steam and tear my way through the Hunter's Nightmare one last time. I love this weapon so damn much. If I were ever to make an updated video on my Bloodborne weapon opinions, this would definitely be a few spots higher than last time. Both of the transforming attacks are stylish and feel so good to use, plus the transformed mode is one of the best things in the game. The regular attacks have an awesome combination of being quick and covering a lot of space, which makes it incredible for crowd control. The L2 is also super fun, and the charged heavy might just have the longest range of any single attack in the game. The only thing I don't like about the Burial Blade is the untransformed mode. It's honestly not bad at all, but something about the animations of the attacks feels so awkward and unsatisfying to me. Anyway, after indulging in some epic Burial Blade combat, it's time for Lawrence, the second hardest boss in the game. Only this time, I'm facing him fully prepared, so it's basically the same as fighting him on a regular run. I also love using the Burial Blade against him since it's really handy for getting headshots, as well as taking him out from a distance while in phase 2. I did die a couple times from his nutty damage, and just the general chaotic nature of the second half, but still got him on try number 3. Now, I'm sure plenty of you are thinking, there's only one boss left. Time to wrap things up. But by this point, I realized I wanted to turn this video into kind of a full-on love letter to this game's weapon variety. So for the sake of showing off everything, we're gonna do a tiny bit of Chalice Dungeon content, starting with weapon number 22, the Church Pick. Easily one of the most efficient killers in the game. It took a while to grow on me, but once it did, I was blown away at just how good it is. It's also one of the few where I actually like both transformations equally. Out of the many short, quick DPS tools in the game, this is definitely one of my favorites. The light attack combo feels great, and the charged R2 is one of my favorite untransformed charges in the game. The other mode has it elongated, and is more meant for dealing with groups of enemies, or if you want a little extra range against your target. Since I'm diving into the beginning of the dungeons, I figured I'd just go with a +3 upgrade. Naturally, I breezed through the first dungeon, and moved on to the Undead Giant. He was more or less just a punching bag, but at least I got some cool church bit gameplay. Weapon number 23, the Cos Parasite. In order to properly use this weapon, I first had to head back to the research hall so I could get the Milkweed rune. And when combined with the Cos Parasite, which you obtain from beating the Orphan of Cos, you get to turn into a blue abomination with a cauliflower-looking head who has tentacles for arms. Earlier in this video, I said that the Amygdalin arm was a contender for the weirdest weapon in the game, but this gets the gold medal, no competition. The untransformed mode has you whipping around one tentacle arm, while transformed simply has you do it with both. Overall, the attacks are pretty solid, plus the general weirdness of them makes them fun to use. And of course, it's got the awesome AoE explosion, which takes up silver bullets. For this one, I decided to add one blood gem, cause I don't know, I just want to have fun with it. One trip through a boring dungeon later, and time for a second Chalice boss. As expected, they weren't much of a threat, but at least it was fun whipping them with my tentacles. I also remembered to try out the L2 AoE at the end, which made insanely short work of them. Now that I can search Chalice glyphs, I'm just gonna pick up a Beast Claw real quick. But next up for weapon 24 is the good ol' Saw Spear. Like many other players, I was initially turned off by this weapon, but over time I've come to realize it's damn near just a better saw cleaver. In this one's case, both transformations get serrated damage, instantly making the elongated version better, and I also generally prefer the spear's elongated moveset to the cleaver's. Aside from that, and a few small differences in damage and scaling, they're exactly the same. For the next dungeon, we're going +3 again. Man, it's been a long time since I've fought Watchdog. Not gonna lie, he caught me off guard a lot in the first half. I still have a somewhat solid memory of the moveset, but there were a few moments where shit really hit the fan. All in all though, it ended up being a pretty unnoteworthy first try victory. For weapon 25, I'm busting out the monster that many consider the most efficient in the game for PvE, Ludwig's Holy Blade. It's got a similar gimmick to the Kirkhammer, where the untransformed version is an orthodox sword, which you can stick into a much bigger blade. And while this one's transformed look isn't as goofy as the hammer's, it packs a mighty wallop. Not gonna lie, over the last couple years, I've often thought of this weapon's moveset as being a bit basic and vanilla. But nah, it's actually pretty damn cool. The transforming attacks are so stylish and fun to use, the straight sword is fast and efficient, and the full blade is one of those weapons that just carries so much oomph that I can't help but enjoy displaying its overwhelming power. For this dungeon, I decided to go +3 and add 1 top tier gem. In hindsight, the gem probably wasn't necessary, but whatever, this weapon's all about being overpowered anyway. Once again, we've got a merciless watcher gank, and once again, they're pushovers. The most tragic thing about this run is that I keep rediscovering how fun a lot of the weapons are, and then having to move on. For the final weapon of the video, I'm going with the Beast Claw. +10, baby. Easily one of the most interesting weapons, since it has 2 different versions with a total of 4 unique movesets. If you use it normally, the untransformed moveset is kinda what you would expect from a claw weapon, but transforming it creates another real beast-like claw on your left hand, making the moveset turn comparatively fast and visceral, while also coming with the effect you gain from beast blood pellets, where your damage racks up over time, but simultaneously makes your defense worse. Or if you transform yourself into a beast with the rune you get from defeating Lawrence, you unlock entirely new movesets, which both assume similar roles to the originals, except in this form, both of them come with the beast blood pellet effect. Alright, one more loose end before defeating Moon Presence. I promised Joe the Crow I'd bring him some cosmic kush when my journey was complete. I really appreciate you, Joe. Wish I could stay, but it's time for me to ascend in a different way. I guess it's ironic that I, being a beast right now, should defeat the Moon Presence. Born from the blood of great ones, such as the Moon Presence, found deep within the Chalice dungeons. After all this time, an abomination made possible by your kind has come to your level to take your place among the unfathomable. Anyway, if you made it this far, then thanks for watching. I'm sorry this one took a while to come out. The holidays soaked up a lot more of my free time than expected. And I also wasted a fair amount of time trying a certain Dark Souls 3 run, which I might finish sometime in the future. But after kind of having a small break, I feel really motivated to make some new stuff. But for now, that's all I got. Until next time.